Hey everyone, I want to talk about two really interesting lessons that I learned from a beautiful Bible story about manifesting your desires and the importance of operating from a healthy and productive inner state. When the Israelites left Egypt, at some point when they were wandering in the desert, they ran out of food. And God provided for them by bringing down this substance from the sky called manna. And every morning the Israelites would wake up and there would be a layer of this manna on the ground. And God told them that they were each to gather enough for only their household for only that day. Any excess that was taken for tomorrow or to hoard would turn to worms. Now, when we think about manifestation, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard this when learning about manifestation, it is not our job to concentrate too hard on how our desires will manifest, but more to focus on our desire itself, on the end outcome, on the end goal, but not the how. The universe has an infinite amount of ways to send us our desires, and we cannot, with our logical mind, come up with all of these endless ways. We can only really come up with things that we've been exposed to in any sort of way, whether it's watching a movie or seeing it on the news or hearing someone else do it or something that we've experienced. But if it's something that we have never been exposed to in any sort of way, we can't really come up with like a totally abstract idea that has never been presented to us in any sort of way. If we go back to the Israelites for a moment in the desert, the only way they know how to get food is agriculture, hunting, and as it's looking right now where there's nothing for miles, they cannot really come up with a way to get this food. Now, not only did the manna appear in a non-conventional way, falling from the sky, it was also a food that never existed before. Like if I were to ask you to come up with a food, and I don't mean just a dish with ingredients that you already know about, I mean a completely new concept of a food. Now my brain right away goes to a fruit, and let's say a pineapple, but then, okay, I can't think of a pineapple because it has to be a new fruit, so I try to mush it in with an orange. But again, I'm still using concepts that I know about, like, yeah, okay, so I just made up a new hybrid fruit of a pineapple and an orange, but it's not a new concept. Now, this manna fell from the sky like snow and had a honey taste to it. It was a food that never existed before. And it was definitely not something that the Israelites could come up with using their own logical mind. Now, there's a really famous story. It's a fictional story, like one of those short stories just to give us lessons in life, about this guy. And there's a flood in his city, and he climbs to the tallest tower, and he says, okay, I'm gonna wait for God to save me. God's gonna save me. So a few minutes later comes a raft and says, get on the raft, I'm gonna save you. And the guy goes, no, thank you, God's gonna save me. A few minutes later comes a boat, and the boat says, get in, I'm gonna save you. And the guy goes, no, thank you, God's gonna save me. Okay, water's rising. A few minutes later comes a helicopter and says, get in, I'm gonna save you. And the guy goes, no, thank you, God's gonna save me. Okay, water keeps rising. The guy eventually drowns. He gets to heaven and he goes to God and he says, why didn't you try to save me? I waited for you. And God goes, what do you mean? I sent you the raft, I sent you the boat, I sent you the helicopter. You refused all of the ways that I sent you. So this is a really cute story that just goes to teach us that when we are laser focused on the how, and we have a concept in our mind of a how, which I guess for this guy was like, I don't know, some angel was gonna come in and swoop him up. But when we concentrate and focus and insist on only one way of something happening, we are basically shutting off and closing ourselves off to even being aware of other possibilities to bring our desires to us. When the universe sends us a possibility, we won't even hear it, we won't even see it. And that's why it's so important for us to be open and allow the universe to send us these other possibilities, and to be open to noticing them and accepting them and trying them out instead of being so laser focused on one way. I see this interesting phenomenon happen with a lot of people who are starting out with manifestation for the first time, and I'm guilty of this too. One of the most common things that I see people trying to manifest is money, abundance, financial security. And the most obvious way, from usually our state that we're in, the most obvious way that our logical mind can think of receiving this fast abundance is by winning the lottery. An interesting thing about people who have won the lottery, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot, is that a lot of people who have won the lottery end up within a couple years, and I'm talking people who have won millions, but they'll end up in a couple years from winning the lottery losing it all and possibly even being in a worse off position than they were before winning the lottery. I find this really interesting, and I think this is because our 3D circumstances is really just a mirror of our inner state. And if we're lacking on the outside, then that means something is lacking on the inside, and we have limiting beliefs about money and about abundance. Now, if we are in that state, let's say we're over here on the frequency scale and abundance is way up here, and all of a sudden we win the lottery and we just get dumped all this abundance on us, we're not in an inner state and we're not in a place where we can manage this amount of abundance. And a lot of people end up blowing through all of their money when they win the lottery because they're just not in the right frequency. They're still acting from a place of scarce. They're still acting from a place of lack, and they can't manage this abundance. And there's an interesting analogy for this with electricity. And I love this because electricity is also energy. So imagine you have a device, and this device can only handle a certain amount of voltage. And then you take a source, and the source, let's say, gives off a much higher voltage, and you plug in this device into this high power source. What will end up happening is this amount of electricity that gets thrown into this device that can't handle it, this little device will end up being fried. So I kind of look at this as the same way, that when you dump all of this abundance, which is just energy as well, when you dump all of this abundant energy onto a person that is not in the space to be able to handle it, does not have that capacity, is not on the right frequency to handle this amount of abundance, it could end up frying the person. It could end up actually bringing them even lower. When it looks like the universe is just denying you or not giving you your desires, it's not that the universe doesn't have your best interest at heart. It does. It knows the state you're at. It knows what you can handle, and it gives you the best path to your desires that is right for you. Imagine I told you there were two paths right now that you could go on, and there's endless paths, but let's just take two for example. One, you win the lottery right now and you make millions of dollars, but in a year from now, because you weren't aligned with that abundance frequency, you blow through it all and you end up losing all of your money, and in a year from now, you're actually in a worse state than you were now financially. Or option number two, one day you come up with a business idea, it just hits you, or someone proposes a business idea to you, and for the next year you have to put in the work. Your financial situation probably stays pretty much the same, maybe it gets a little bit better, but nothing life-changing. And you put in the work for the next year, and in a year from now, this idea just really takes off. Your business grows and grows and grows, and you make tons of money, and this money lasts for the rest of your life, and you become a millionaire and totally abundant, generational wealth, and you're happy for the rest of your life. Now, if I laid out these options to you with the final outcomes of each one, I think we would all obviously choose path number two, grind for a year, but eventually, after a year, you will be extremely abundant. Now, if I stripped away the future and you could only see, the present, and I offered you right now to either win the Mega Millions or to be proposed or come up with some sort of business idea that you don't know where it's going, I think we would all say the Mega Millions. I would say the Mega Millions, right? So what we need to understand from this is that the universe doesn't know time. There is no time with the universe. The universe sees past, present, future, knows what this outcome will be for you, knows that if you take this path right now in your current state, you will end up falling. Or if you take this path right now in your current state, you will end up growing at a healthy pace, at the pace that makes sense for you right now. And that will eventually bring you your desires in the best way. You don't want to have your desires now and lose them because you're not ready for them. You want to be ready for your desires and get them as you are aligning gradually. Now, if we're so laser focused on this lottery and the universe is sending us possibilities and ideas, but we're so laser focused on the lottery, then we're not being open to these possibilities. We're not being open to these ideas, and we're not even going to recognize them when they appear. You could be in a situation right now where you're just so behind on bills and you want to buy this house, but you just can't see how that's ever going to happen for you. And an idea pops into your head and you're like, okay, nice idea, but it's not going to be life-changing. You're not going to be motivated to actually go and try this idea out because you're not going to see the outcome of it as something that's going to be life-changing for you when it could be. You're going to just say, the only thing that could take me right now out of my situation is the lottery. So you're just going to shut off and be unmotivated to try other possibilities. And something really interesting about the lottery is that I don't think I actually know any rich people who want to win the lottery. Like, I don't think I know rich people who buy lottery tickets. And I don't mean this in a condescending, judgy way. I, to this day, still buy lottery tickets. But if you really think about rich people, like, I don't think that they do that. You don't actually want money. What you want is what that money will give you. Like, if you want to be out of debt and pay off all of your debt, you don't want money. You want to be debt free. You want to be financially free. And if you want a house, you don't want money to buy the house. You want the house. At the end of the day, if you got this money, you would be giving it away right away anyways. So it's not money that you want. It's specific things. It's assets. It's freedom. That's what you want. So if you can concentrate on that, on your end goal, instead of concentrating on money, because if you think about it, money is also the how, right? Because if your end goal, if you're going to receive this money and then right away give it away, it's not money that you want. So if you could concentrate on the end goal, which is being financially free, which is being debt free, which is owning that house, then the universe can also come in, and there's a million other ways that you could get these things. Like, what if the person you owe money to calls you up one day and just says, hey, I don't need the money anymore. I'm good. You're clean. And I know that sounds crazy, but you know what's also crazy? Manna falling from the sky in the desert. That's also crazy. The universe has a million ways to bring you this house, has a million ways to clear your debt for you, but you're so laser focused on winning the lottery that you're not even open to actually accepting these other ways of getting what you desire. So to sum up the first point that I learned from this beautiful story, it is not our job to insist on the how. It is our job to be open to the universe giving us the ways and showing us the path to our desires. Imagine the Israelites, they only know about agriculture. They only know about hunting. If they were so laser focused on that being the only way that they could get food, they would have woken up in the morning, saw this manna on the ground, been like, what is that? And they wouldn't even have noticed it probably on the ground, because they would be so laser focused looking above ground for animals, for tribes to go steal from, that they wouldn't have even noticed or been aware of this amazing miracle that God performed for them. Now, the second lesson, which I find so beautiful and so symbolic about this whole story, is the manna turning into worms if you took excess. I learned from this two things. One, we have to be really aware of our inner states. When we act from a place of needing to take excess, what we are basically saying to the universe is that I do not trust that I am safe, that I am okay, and I am going to be provided for. Like, if we need to take for tomorrow, today, that means that we're basically saying, I do not believe that tomorrow I will be okay. I do not believe that tomorrow I will be provided for. And that is a limiting belief, and we manifest what we believe. God is basically saying to them, I brought you this miracle. I brought you down this manna in the most non-conventional way, in a way you could never think of. I performed this miracle for you. I saved you. Please trust me that if I performed a miracle for you once, I'm going to perform a miracle for you again. I'm going to continue taking care of you. What this is trying to tell us is that we have to be really careful to stay in a trusting state, to be in a state of expecting good outcomes, expecting the best, not to expect the worst, right? When we hoard, or a lot of people save money for a rainy day, and I don't agree with that. I think that we should be saving money for good things. Like, if you want to open a savings account for your child's wedding, or for that house you want to buy, or for that vacation you want to go on, that's awesome. That is showing the universe that you are expecting these things to happen for you. But if you save money in an account for an unexpected hospital bill, or save money in an account for, let's say 3 months of expenses, you're basically telling the universe, I expect at one point in my life to not be able to pay my expenses for 3 months, or I am expecting an unexpected hospital bill. Like, why would you want that? Expect good things. Make actions that show the universe that you believe that you are going to have, and that you have good in your life. Now, the other aspect of this thing is that it wasn't just that you couldn't take excess, or that if you took excess it disappeared. No, the excess of the manna that you took turned to worms. And I find this so beautifully symbolic, because what I learned from this is that when we take actions and make decisions from a place of fear, from a place of doubt, of lack, our actions are just going to result in worms, right? There's not going to be any blessing that comes from these actions. Think about how a person acts when they act from a state of fear or a state of desperation. They usually make really impulsive decisions. They usually do things that are embarrassing. Like, it's just not a good state to act from. We need to get to a place of trust, a place of calm where we have faith in the universe and from there make decisions, because from that state, our decisions will bring about blessings. So those are the lessons that I learned from this beautiful Bible story. I hope you guys got some value from this, and there are tons of lessons that we can learn from this story. And if you guys have any other insights, what you've learned from this story, or just anything else, questions, comments, whatever, please drop it in the comments. I would love to hear your guys' perspective on things. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.